Thank you, Mrs. Rohrbach. I think that has given us all somewhat of a feeling of the beginnings. And when some of us look back, and the year, when was it? 1935, why, turns our hair grayer. Whiter? Miss Henrietta Bancroft, also a charter member, tells me that she taught nature study and science for 25 years to ages 2 through 12 at the Walden School, and later also taught the 2nd and 3rd grades. And I recall she wrote 2 delightful science books for children, which my grandchildren enjoyed very much, Down Come the Leaves and Animals in Winter. Henrietta has been closely involved with club activities from the very start. She was secretary of the club in the early years when both jobs of corresponding and recording were held by one person. That seems almost impossible nowadays. She has served on the Hospitality Committee and Program Committee, and on the Bulletin Mailing Committee, nominating and auditing committees, and she had 2 years as chairman of the Bulletin Committee and is on it now, I guess, on the Bulletin Committee. For 7 years, she was on the Publications Board. She also served on the Fundraising Committee for the Library Endowment Fund under the chairmanship of Ellen Thayer. And I almost forgot, she was president of the club for 2 terms, from 1952 to 56. Perhaps I hardly need introduce Henrietta Bancroft, who will read to us Recollections of Early Days by Eleanor Linton.
Let's see if I can get in front of this. Is it all right?
It's fine.
Good. Eleanor Linton was an early member of our group, even before the club was formed, as you will see by her paper. I was asked to speak here on what it means to be an APC member. Horrified by the enormity, I begged off. But it seemed a rank-and-file opinion from one of my ancient historical status was requested. Actually, I am prehistoric, since I was a free-floating member before there was any United States club. I began analysis in 1932 in New York. Contacts were then restricted to hours in the ivory tower. And since depth psychology was still considered scandalous in most circles, I bore my bursting secret in Trappist silence. In due time, I learned of a happy hunting ground at Bailey Island, Maine, where 3 analysts took patients for concentrated summer work. So eventually I landed on Bailey in my 2nd summer. Here I plunged from lone self-scrutiny into group confrontation par excellence. The majority tackling analysis on Bailey inhabited 2 cottages in a spruce forest with the Atlantic pounding the rocks below. Extras lodged with the natives. And I did my own first stretch, domiciled in a feather bed, smack against the eaves above a fishing family. But we Jungians had meals in our main house, which also made the center of our wild collective enantiodromias. One had hopefully faced one's own score, but here others saw it too. Now we had to deal with our worst complexes in the chill of public observation. With everyone introverting at top pitch, the primitive summer arrangements pushed us to the limit. Projections flew fast, and every aspect of the psyche had its day. We featured the shadow and ruefully found ourselves working harder on other people's than our own. Yet equal were the positives. The work was tough indoors, where the pine walls amplified every breath. Nature enfolded each in the boundless privacy of woodsy niches, scattered tide pools, and drenched ledges. Best of all was the tribal rapport emerging from our free time together, in picnics, boat trips, discussions, and fireside music. Eleanor Stone, beloved in all her Jung jobs, piloted our venture where in stark darkness and full light we forged ties as strong as death. Bailey contributed vitally to forming the New York Club. The doctors, being widely importuned, agreed to a dinner discussion of such a plan by about 70 of the seasoned in 1935. Some, led by Edward Bernays, Freud's nephew, but of our heresy, opposed the project. Both sides argued from the same premise, that Jungian psychology is above all, quote, a way of life, unquote. Some felt the experience to be so totally personal that any group exchange was unthinkable, whereas the urge to share the human findings of this way motivated the rest. The club idea won out, and the analysts, despite their natural initial reluctance, have given endlessly to its progress. Early programs were mainly intramural. Only analysts went to Zurich. Lesser mortals were just working up to that when World War II struck. But we were enriched by European scholars coming to us from allied fields, among them Dr. Stouffer. Then came the two all-time supreme events for American Jungians, the visits of Dr. and Mrs. Jung in 1936 and 37. 100 of us had a week with them on Bailey, where Dr. Jung gave a seminar for 5 mornings, 2-hour seminars, before attending the Harvard Tercentenary. Daily afternoon, we met Dr. Jung's zest for American fun with typical provincial gaieties, and we dished out terrific charades on his fancy terms. At the peak, he was our commentator for Song of the Mountain Chant. In 1937, Dr. Jung held another seminar in New York before the Terry Lectures at Yale. Finally, the war exploded, and just as we here feel a close bond in our Jungian approach to the dilemmas of our day, so we in New York took heart from clan linkage from 1939 onward. There were constant perils on war problems, and all the analysts contributed their wisdom. Naturalized, Dr. Harding touched off her gems with a brisk, "As the youngest American present, may I suggest," in the breeziest of non-American accents. In the 40s, I moved to Los Angeles. The story continues. I did not have the honor to be a founder of this APC, and I have the highest admiration for those who were. We are indebted above all to James and Hilda Kirsch for building up Dr. Jung's work. As for the club, with so few bona fide Jungians at hand, yet so many wild Indians dying to join, it was a Herculean task for all who were responsible to preserve the pristine soundness we still enjoy. As each Jung club reflects its environment, so I feel this one stands out for its pioneer enthusiasm and creativity. The spontaneity here has enchanted our many guests, notably Dr. Bertine, who still exclaims about it. Los Angeles initiated the flow of lecturers from Zurich, and also organized the first American groups for professional study and training. Now our circle widens with the new members whom we salute with pride. May these bits from our past help reconcile them to the long initiation they have endured to join us. I often feel we are the most initiated people on earth. But we discover many times over the value to us all that no one is spared the horrendous digging. Only so may our interchange approach to that reality so little known in other human systems. I'd rather deal with Jungians than other people when I can, even the ones I don't like or that don't like me. My keenest memory of Dr. Jung sums up what I'm driving at. In closing the seminar on Bailey, he stood in the prime of his maturity. He had been discussing the role of contrary extremes in the integration process, especially the outer universe vis-a-vis the inner man. Quote, "But the two worlds are singularly opposite, and the only place where sense is made is where the two come together in the temenos, in the square of individuation, where one knows what one is and why one lives." End quote.
Thank you, Henrietta. That was delightful.